All right. So for this office hours, I already pasted basically a couple resources about creating a data science presentation. I'm just gonna do presentations. Um, and what I have here is I have a presentation template that I'm gonna walk through, and it's basically like a guideline of what you could have on every slide. This is definitely up to you. If you feel like there's a better way to present your findings, definitely can like change it up. But while I'm going through this, I'll mention like what are things that I do want to see and what are things I don't want to see. Or not me, but like as like a business person or a non-technical stakeholder, what they will want to see and or not see. And then just for your reference, oops, let's see, I can't see these tabs. This is an example PowerPoint of one of my prior students. Definitely don't see this flashy with all like the graphics and all that. Um, but just for your reference, it actually follows a very similar structure. Just know that during this time the project was a little bit different, so they did use an API. But if you want like an example, this is like really a pretty solid example of a presentation. Before we get started, do we have any just presentation related questions?
Ideally, how many slides or
So roughly, it kind of depends on how many how many insights you come up with. So let's see, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here, and I only have one insight. So about like, I think this on the rubric it says about 8 slides, but I would say 8 to 10 slides. But like also depends on like your presentation style. Some people like to have very little per slide, so you end up having more slides. That's fine. But with this, I'm just gonna walk through like generally what kind of information we should be seeing. And also like I know some people like to do the structure a little bit different. I think as you're working through your presentation and as you're like coming up with your narrative, you'll find what works best for you and your project. So definitely by no means you have to follow this exactly. But yeah, this is just like a very general guideline of what you could do. Um, yeah, so yeah, I'm just gonna walk through each slide and say like what typically I would be looking out for. And if you have any questions, just let me. All right, so to start, you have your title slide. Please put your project title there, subtitle if you have one, include your name. This is where you can put like funny pictures or graphics or whatever. But yeah, it really, I feel like sets the tone of your presentation for sure. In a slide like this, the second slide, you definitely want to give like an overview slide. So for some people, this could look like an agenda of like, in this presentation, we're going to talk about, data and then insights and then conclusions. Or if you have like a why, if you come up with like, why am I looking at this particular subset of this movie data set, you can add that into this slide as well. Basically anything that would provide extra context to your analysis, or provide extra context, or add weight to the things that you're saying. Like for example, in this example, they did one that analyzed specifically holidays that came out on movies that came out on holiday weekends. And so they had like, and you can see their notes here, they want to see specifically how movies do on holiday weekends, because those are based on their hypothesis. They're like, yeah, movies probably do the best during holiday weekends. How can we maximize this? So if you have something like that, definitely that would go in a slide like this. After going through your overview, you should then talk about what data you're using. I know we all got the same data sets provided, but it's always good to mention, because you're going to imagine that when you're presenting your project, we're all stakeholders here. We don't know that you were provided this data set. So just mention where you got your data from. It's always useful to say like, all right, IMDb, TMDb, did you use an API? And if you did, which specific APIs? if you scrape data, where did you scrape your data from? It always adds a lot of context to like what data you're doing your analysis on. And then not just that, but also provide a snapshot of your data. I think it's kind of underrated that like, it's kind of to mention, for example, how many movies are in your analysis? Did you do your analysis on like 1,000 movies or 10,000 movies? Because that kind of makes a difference. And also some high level descriptors are usually helpful, definitely depending on the project. But for this one, I think you can say like, all right, the movies I looked at were maybe like the top 100 top grossing movies over the past 10 years, or is it only movies that were released in English? Is it only movies from like 2017 to 2018? Depending on what subset you end up looking at for most of your analysis, or if you have different subsets, I would mention that as well. So a data slide is usually like very, very informative. It gives ground to the analysis that you're doing. Cool. We are already halfway through this. Here, your insight slides. So very typically, for this project especially, we're coming up with like 3 to 5 insights, depending on how many people you're working with. So each insight slide should be kind of similar. Things you're going to include on this slide include the data visualization that that backs up your claim or your insight on why you're making this recommendation. A couple lines explaining why, if that's necessary. Like, let's say maybe your recommendation is not direct, that you can't see why directly from a visualization. If it's something that you derive from the visualization, definitely add a few lines saying like, all right, because the graph looks like this, that implies that this, therefore this. So you want to help like make things as clear as possible here. Something that not a lot of people do, but I think is actually very, very helpful, is annotate your graphs. Like, I think in this data set, like you have maybe like 15 unique genres. And if you have like 15 genres and maybe like multiple bars for each, sometimes you want to highlight like a specific genre or a specific year's genre, maybe. If it's not like immediately like the tallest one or the shortest bar, it's actually very, very helpful to just like, literally take one of these arrows on PowerPoint and like just draw an arrow pointing at it, or like circle it. You can totally do that just to make things a little more clear, because this presentation is technically only like 5 to 8 minutes long. So you are kind of speeding through it. And so you want to make things as clear and eye-catching as possible, which is why you want to like highlight specific parts of your visualization. Something that I think is going to be relevant to a lot of you is also, did you engineer any features? So for example, I think one thing that's very common is in this data set, they have the budget and they have the revenue data for the movies, but they don't have profit. That's like a kind of like a basic one, but because you took, let's say you want to find the profit information, you took like revenue minus budget. That's something called feature engineering. That's actually a huge thing in data science. The fact that you made a new variable is a big deal. And so it's a good thing to mention that, I took these columns from this data, created this visualization, created this variable, feature engineering, did some feature engineering, and then came to this conclusion. So it's always good to mention if you're doing anything special like that. Yeah, that's, I think, going to be the bulk of it. I would say like 1, maybe 2 slides per insight if you have like maybe a lot to say about that specific step of your project. But for the most part, I think 1 slide per insight is enough. Like, for example, these guys, they did like 1 visualization per slide, and they did it in a different way, where they literally just slapped the visualization on there, and you can see that their presentation was more like, it was all in their notes. It was mainly based on what they were saying. So something like this actually is a really good example of like, all right, I see all these bars and all these holidays. Like, what am I supposed to be looking at, and what am I supposed to be looking for? And so they're saying that like, all right, adventure was the top grossing genre 18 years during Christmas. And then I would have to like, you know, take a look and like, all right, which one is adventure? Where is Christmas? And then lead me to this bar. And in this specific case, it's not immediately clear to me what I'm looking at, because honestly, the first thing I see is like these things in the middle, which at least in their notes, they didn't really mention. So if you find something that's like, you know, a little bit cluttered, it could be useful to just like, you know, draw some arrows, maybe like draw a box around it, something like that. And yeah. For context, this presentation was actually done by an in-person cohort, so they were actually presenting it in front of people. Whereas for you guys, your PDF is going to live on your GitHub, and so you still want your slides to have a little bit more information than just the visual.
So in the right, if let's say we are doing a PowerPoint presentation, and then like if we are using those features of animation or anything where to highlight things, right? That probably will not appear right in a PDF directly, right?
Oh
Because
yeah, not
when you
like
go through the process.
yeah,
So
definitely not like animation things, but even if you just like, you know, draw an arrow or like maybe take like a circle, something like that, and like literally do this. And I mean, do something like that. Maybe like, I don't know, make this line thicker, make this like bright red or something. It immediately becomes more clear. Like you don't have to have like the animation of like the arrows flying in, things like that. Just like this, I feel like makes it immediately more clear what a reader could be looking for.
So the presentation has to be in the PDF format only?
Well, the way when you present it and when you're recording yourself doing it, it can be in whatever format you want, but when you submit it, it has to be in a PDF format on your GitHub.
Okay.
That's just like the most universal format that like anyone can open. Yeah. And also it like renders nicely on GitHub. All right. So aside from insights, aside from insights, that's pretty much the bulk of your project. So right after that, you could lead to like your summary and conclusions, where you would want to summarize all your insights in a single slide and add any like overall recommendations, if any. That's pretty straightforward. It's just really just like repeating everything that you said, but in an even more concise format.
So for the for the insight, so it could be multiple slides, like it could be like or like 3 or 4 or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. This is just like one single insight. I imagine this as just one single insight. I didn't want to put like 4 of the same thing here, but yeah, each insight would have probably its own slide. Yeah, so you're gonna have a much because this only comes up to like 7 slides. You're definitely gonna have more than that. Yeah, that's a good clarification. Yeah, so your conclusions will go here, and then something that's actually like maybe not so much for this project, but for future projects, what you're gonna want to do is have a next step slide, because we all know that as bootcamp students, our projects are very time-based, as in we have a deadline and we only have 2 weeks part-time to do this project. So if you had more time or if you had more data and more resources, what else would you like to accomplish? So let's say maybe during this project you realize, hey, this data doesn't like merge well together. I wanted to do like the profit data, but I couldn't. So you could say as a next step, use an API to get the profit data that matches all the movies. So things like that are actually very, one, it gives you things to do after you graduate, so you can keep continuing, so you can continue working on your project afterwards, which is what a lot of people do. But also it shows that, you know, even like, let's say you're like, maybe you're unsatisfied with the work that you've done. It gives you like, I don't know, it's just a chance to show up like you at least know these things are possible. And yeah, it's always good to see what next steps are. And it's actually a pretty common interview question as well. A lot of people ask, all right, if you had a little bit more time, what is one extra thing you wish you did? And here you can definitely not just do one, but like maybe a couple, however many you think of, you can do that. And then finally, this one is like the least content written slide. It's just a thank you slide. It is part of the rubric, so that's why it's here. This is more for like professional purposes. Like if you end up like presenting your project at a conference, which actually a couple students have done that. Not so much Mod 1 project, but more so Capstone projects. But you can also link to the resources that you used. Like if you, let's say, I don't know, maybe there's like a movie trend going on and someone wrote an article about it and you were inspired by that, you can add that here. You can definitely link your GitHub repo. I know what some people do as well, especially for their like later projects. You can link your contact info, like your LinkedIn and your email. So like if anyone wants to contact you on whatever it is that you did, your information is there.
Ish, what is the Capstone? It's a software, or it's, I mean, what exactly it is?
Oh, Capstone is basically your Mod 5 project. So Capstone is your final project. Like when you're done, is the project that like finishes out the program.
So, you know, I've seen that like in a lot of places, apart from let's say Flatiron, there are other places also where Capstone is being used. So
yeah,
I just got confused, like what exactly it is.
Oh, Capstone I think just means like final project. Let me just Google what Capstone means. If you, yeah, all right. Oh, large stone. There we go. So Capstone course serves as like a culminating and usually integrative experience of an educational program. So basically like for Flatiron School, it is our final project where you like take everything you've learned across all the mods and put it into one project. I don't know if any of you actually managed to see the Capstone presentations for, as actually the cohort that's graduating today. I managed to catch a couple. Those are like pretty cool. But yeah, that's the tangent.
I have seen one presentation. I mean, it was, I think, when Jeff asked his team, I mean, whoever were that on the self-paced group, and one of them, so I could not see much, but like just a part of it. And then I realized that it was not being recorded because some of the students did not want it to be recorded.
Oh yeah, actually I think today's one was recorded. So if I find the link, I don't know who I have to contact to find the link, but I'm gonna ask like some of the New York instructors and see if I can get the link, and I'll definitely share it out to the channel because there's some pretty cool projects. Someone made like a Pokemon generator, which excited me.
Oh yeah, that one was pretty cool.
Oh, you saw that?
Yeah, it's actually, I think it's ongoing at the moment, like it went late, but yeah.
Yeah, I watched the last couple right before this started. But yeah, there are some really, really cool projects, and like my old coworkers were the instructors for this cohort, so very, very exciting to see that. But yeah, these project showcases happen every 6 weeks, so I'll always send them out as long as I get the information.
So is this kind of the same format for every mod project?
Pretty much. I would say the only difference is Mod 1 doesn't have any modeling. So starting Mod 2, we're going to be working with like machine learning models. And for the most part, every project is going to have a machine learning model. I think as if you saw the Capstone project, everyone did some sort of model. And so the structure will be a little bit different, where instead of like insights, it'll be talking more about their modeling process, or yeah, I'm about to like say a bunch of words that might not make sense, but like hyperparameter tuning or like model evaluation, things like that. So because this project is more of like a exploratory data analysis project, or really just like data visualization project, and there is no modeling being done here, the focus of this presentation is going to be a lot more like insight focused. But like I'll do another one of these when we get to the Mod 2 project, and it'll be for the most part the same, just like this specific like insight part will be a little bit different. But yeah, any other questions about presentations or about the project in general? Just know that for the you have to record yourself presenting. There are different ways to do it. I think the easiest way is to just use Zoom. And like if you're working with somebody else, just because Zoom does, as if you've seen my like YouTube recordings, it has like the slides there and then just like your little face in the corner. And I think that's just like the easiest way to do it. It is an option if as well. I can always record I can record the presentation day presentations, and then you can use that as a submission. So if you want
the one which is on the month end, in that like you can just record it whatever we are saying, right?
Yep, that's right.
And that is sufficient, right?
Yeah, it will be. I think you will see that you will have to submit something, so you can submit just like a dummy link temporarily if you want to do that. In the upcoming one-on-ones, I'll definitely like discuss this with you guys. But yeah, it will just make it such that you don't have to record your own presentation, and I can just use the one that you're using to present to the class. So yeah, I think. Yeah, I know some people just like to have it a little bit more scripted and be more prepared and record it on their own. So definitely you can do that if you prefer. But yeah, I will be recording all of the project presentations anyways. So yeah, just know that that's an option. I'll be asking you guys, or just like tell me if you decide if you want to have the class recording version as your recording submission. Just let me know.
Yeah, class recording should be. I think I'm not sure on that, but because in class recording, like okay, you just go with your natural flow, whether it's good, bad, ugly, whatever it is, you just go by it.
Yeah, it's also less awkward than like talking to yourself. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would say like I would work on the presentation when you're like done with the project, or at least like I would start working on the presentation maybe when you've like come up with your questions and started like maybe doing some visualizations. But for the most part, starting on the presentation itself shouldn't take very long. I would say like a couple hours maybe. But yeah, in terms of like getting your visualizations, screenshots are just the easiest way. There is actually in Seaborn and in Matplotlib, there's a save fig method that you can save your save whatever visualization as a PNG. So you can definitely do that as well. But I'm a screenshot person. I think it's just faster that way. And yeah. But cool. Any other questions? Awesome. So yeah, these office hours will be shorter if there are no questions. As usual, I'm really happy to see like you guys asking questions on the Slack channel now, and you guys are helping each other out. That really warms my heart. Also less work for me, but you're helping each other out, and that's what matters. So yeah, continue to do that. I will be not available to answer questions Friday afternoon, like after 3 p.m. because I'm moving, unfortunately. So if you need any help, ask each other, or I think like Matt or Ben will be answer questions that Friday, starting I think like 5 p.m. So yeah, in that case, good luck on your project. Have a good weekend. And yeah, as usual, any questions, just let me know. All right, have a good rest of your evening, you guys.